After 9/11 happened, the U.S. government went ahead and shoved the PATRIOT Act down our throats, then the Homeland Security down our throats, then the Afghanistan war, the war on terror, Iraq war. They kept shoving shit down our throats. 9/11 just happened. And the only thing that they wanted to do was exploit the crisis to expand their security state. Max Blumenthal is right. We should pay attention. They are trying to expand the security state
in our country and throughout.
That's exactly right. So you have Senator Joe Biden said that the FBI could get a wiretap to investigate the mafia, but they cannot get one to investigate terrorists. To put it bluntly, that was crazy. What's good for the mob should be good for the terrorists. That was Senator Joe Biden on the congressional record, October 25th, 2001. Passed in the Senate with only one single dissenting vote. The PATRIOT Act dramatically expanded the power of federal authorities to spy on ordinary Americans with minimal oversight, enabled the FBI to obtain detailed information about a citizen's banking history and personal communications without having to seek judicial approval or even allowing sneak and peek searches of homes and offices. The PATRIOT Act by the ACLU, in the rather blunt words of a brief prepared by the ACLU, turned regular citizens into suspects. It destroyed the Fourth Amendment. So October 25th, 2001, right? The Senate vote on the PATRIOT Act that Joe was regularly claiming. He claimed the law as his own. He boasted in an interview with the New Republic, "I drafted the terrorism bill after the Oklahoma City bombing, and the bill John Ashcroft sent up was my bill." And he wasn't wrong. In fact, key parts of the Bush administration's signature national security law were drawn from provisions contained in Joe Biden's own 1995 anti-terrorism bill, originally called the Omnibus Counterterrorism Act of 1995, U.S. Senate Bill S-390, S-761. These two bills were introduced by Senator Joe Biden and Senator Tom Daschle on behalf of the Clinton administration on February 10th, 1995. Here's some of the congressional record about Joe Biden. This is Joe Biden talking. "Mr. President, 6 years ago, I stood on this floor and called upon the Senate to join the fight against terrorism in the wake of the horrific bombing in Oklahoma City. Back then, some argued terrorism was something that usually happened far away in distant lands over distant conflicts. Well, that's all changed. Terrorism has come to America. Not hope and change, but terrorism." This is Joe Biden, 1995, right? Joe Biden, 1995. So we have to be a little proactive now. Back then, I proposed a series of precise anti-terrorism tools to help law enforcement. Okay, see, these are the comments of... No, this is the PATRIOT Act comments. So he's talking about what he did back then, right? 6 years ago in 95. So this is in 2001 he's saying this. Just had 9/11, right? He declared terrorism's come to America. Now he's going to terrorize the shit out of our rights and freedoms. So he says we got to be a little proactive now. Back then I proposed a series of precise anti-terrorism tools to help law enforcement catch terrorists before they commit their deadly act, not ever imagining the events of September 11th. In particular, I said that it simply did not make sense that many of our law enforcement tools were not available for terrorism cases. For example, the FBI could get a wiretap to investigate the mafia, but they could not get one to investigate terrorists. To put it bluntly, that was crazy. What's good for the goose, what's good for the mob should be good for the terrorists. Anyway, some of my proposals were enacted into law in 1996. A number were not. There were those who decided that the threat to Americans was apparently not serious enough to give the president all the changes in law be requested. Today, 5 years later, I again call on my colleagues to provide law enforcement with a number of the tools which they declined to pass back then. The anti-terrorism bill we consider today is measured and prudent. It has been strengthened considerably since the administration originally proposed it in mid-September. It takes a number of important steps in waging an effective war on terrorism. It allows law enforcement to keep up with the modern technology these terrorists are using. The bill contains several provisions which are identical, or nearly identical to those I previously proposed. For example, it allows the FBI to get wiretaps to investigate terrorists, just like they do for the mafia and for drug kingpins. It They can follow a particular suspect regardless of how many different forms of communication that person uses, and it allows terrorists to be charged with federal racketeering offenses, serious criminal charges. So they can follow around a particular, it allows the FBI to get a roving wiretap. Okay, so there it is, the Fourth Amendment. See you later. So Joe Biden says he's pleased with the final version of the bill we are considering today contains 3 provisions that I fought for. Number 1, Section 613 incorporates a bill that Senator Hatch and I introduced earlier this year, S-899, named in honor of Delaware State Trooper Francis Colinder, who was tragically killed in a traffic stop in Odessa, Delaware this past February. S-899 and Section 613 of this bill will raise the one-time death benefit paid to the families of slain or permanently disabled law enforcement officers. For too long, this benefit has stood at $100,000. It was indexed for inflation and currently stands at $151,000. But this is just way too low for the families of these heroes to make ends meet. The bill we consider today raises this benefit to $250,000, continues to index it for inflation, and makes it applicable to the family of any law enforcement or fire personnel who lost their life on or after January 1st, 2001. It's the least we could do for the Colinder family. It's the least we could do for the hundreds of families who tragically lost a loved one on September 11th, and I'm grateful my colleagues have agreed we need to include my bill in this larger anti-terrorism bill today. Second, Section 817 is based on legislation I introduced in the 106th Congress, S-3202. It may shock my colleagues that under current law, anyone, including convicted felons, fugitives, and aliens from terrorist-sponsoring states, can possess anthrax or other biological agents. And under current law, the FBI has no tool at its disposal to charge someone with possession of anthrax. Possession of anthrax or any other dangerous biological agent is legal unless the FBI can make a case that the suspect intended to use the agent as a weapon. This far too high a hurdle for our investigators to overcome in many cases. Indeed, the FBI has informed me it has hindered several of their past bioweapons investigations. Section 817 closes this loophole, prohibits certain classes of individuals, felons, illegal aliens, fugitives, and others from ever possessing these dangerous biological agents. And for everyone else, my provision says you need to be able to show you possess this stuff with a peaceful or bona fide research reason. If not, you're going to be charged with a felony, and you have to face up to 10 years in federal prison. And finally, Section 1005 of this bill incorporates my First Responders Assistance Act. I've spoken with too many local police officers, chiefs, firemen, and women, and others who feel left out of our fight against terrorism. I commend FBI Director Mueller for recently pledging to do a better job sharing information with our state and local law enforcement people, but clearly more needs to be done. Who responds first to a terrorist incident? On September 11th, it was in New York City and Arlington County VA police and fire departments. That's always going to be the case. Local law enforcement is our first line of defense against terrorists, and we need to give them the tools they need to get that job done well. My provision will, for the first time, give state and local enforcement and fire personnel the opportunity to apply directly to the Justice Department to receive terrorism prevention assistance. Specifically, departments will now be able to get help purchasing gas masks, hazardous material suits, intelligence gathering equipment, 21st century communications devices, and other tools to help them respond to terrorist threats. This section also creates a new anti-terrorism training grant program that will fund seminars and other training sessions to help local police departments better analyze intelligence information they come across, help local fire departments acquire the knowledge they need to respond to critical incidents, and assist those agencies who may be called upon to stabilize a community after a terrorist incident. It is my intent that these funds go to professional law enforcement organizations who are in some instances already delivering this type of training. The Department of Justice's Office for Domestic Preparedness does some of this, but their program is a block grant sent to the governor. I want to involve local police and fire departments directly in the fight against terrorism, and this section is an important step towards meeting that goal. The funds authorized, $100 million over the next 4 years, may not be enough to get the job done, but it's a good start. I thank Police Executives Research Forum for working with me to craft this proposal, and I look forward to seeing significant dollars allocated to it in future spending bills. Police Executives Research Forum. So this bill contains this is the PATRIOT Act that Joe Biden, the current president, is talking about. So this bill contains many provisions critical to law enforcement. Some may say it doesn't go far enough. I have to say I was disappointed that the administration dropped some proposals from an early draft of its bill measures, which I called for 5 years ago. Those measures are not in the bill we consider today, but I continue to believe that they're common sense tools we ought to be given to our men and women of law enforcement. We should be extending 48-hour emergency wiretaps and PIN registers, caller ID type devices that track incoming and outgoing phone calls from suspects to terrorism crimes. This would allow police in an emergency situation to immediately obtain a surveillance order against a terrorist, provided the police go to the judge within 48 hours and show that they had the right to get the wiretap and that emergency circumstances prevented them from going to the judge in the first place. Now this emergency tool is available only for organized crime cases, and the bill we consider today does not expand this power to terrorist organizations, to terrorist investigations. We should be extending the Supreme Court's good faith exception to wiretaps. This well-accepted doctrine prevents criminals and other types of offenses from going free when the police make an honest mistake and seize evidence or statements from a suspect. We should apply this good faith exception to terrorist crimes as well to prevent terrorists from getting away when the police make an honest mistake in obtaining a wiretap. I'm pleased Chairman Leahy and the administration were able to reach consensus on the two areas, which gave me some pause in the administration's original proposals. Those provisions dealing with the mandatory detention of illegal aliens and with greater information sharing between the intelligence and law enforcement communities. The agreement reached has satisfied me that these provisions will not upset the balance between strong law enforcement and protection of our valued civil liberties. This bill is not perfect. No one here claims it embodies all the answers to the questions of how best to fight terrorism, but I am confident that by updating our surveillance laws, by taking terrorism as seriously as we do organized crime, and by recognizing the important role state and local law enforcement has to play in this campaign, that we are taking a step in the right direction by passing this bill today.
Throughout the world.
And Nancy Pelosi, of course, wholeheartedly agreed and stated, well, her evidence is that all roads lead to Putin.
Which is a mantra of Blue Anon, and this clip from Hillary Clinton's podcast is a fascinating window into that cult. We've heard a lot about QAnon recently. There's been a lot of reporting on QAnon, talking to QAnon members about their daily lives and how they became so deranged. Well, Hillary Clinton's podcast is a great window into Blue Anon.
I mean, that it's just shocking that these people are.
So you have, the impeachment didn't have any kind of convention. Trump did have a big lie for about 2 months. Garth Brooks' Amazing Grace was amazingly awesome. Hillary Clinton's a Russiagator, McCarthyite, new Cold War psycho. So after 9/11, we did have, Afghanistan, Iraq, war on terrorism, and it's shit's going on today. 20 fucking years later, the PATRIOT Act is going to get shoved down our throat. The Homeland Security Department is going to get shoved down our throat. I think we should have a right to privacy amendment. We should expand our rights and freedoms. Let's get the Economic Bill of Rights passed, and also let's get ourselves a peace department. Homeland Security, no, let's get a peace department. Let's get a right to privacy, America. And also, let's get Economic Bill of Rights. Let's expand our rights and freedoms, not contract. Let's get more rights and freedoms, America. So after 9/11, they shoved all this shit down our throat. So to think that Joe Biden isn't going to, use the crisis of the D.C. Capitol riots to shove a whole bunch more shit down our throat, you're fucking crazy. You know he's going to do it. And he's pushed the Patriot Act. Basically, since he bragged about writing the majority of the Patriot Act with that 95, omnibus counterterrorism bill. So, shit, this is Mr. Patriot Act. This is Mr. Iraq War. This is Mr. I used 9/11 to shove a bunch of shit down your all's fucking throats. So to expect Mr. I'm going to shove a bunch of shit down your throats in 2021 just like I did in 2011, it's not shocking to me. In fact, you should very much expect it. So Max Blumenthal is right to warn us that this, Patriot Act 2.0 is coming, and they're going to use the D.C. riots in order to justify it, and that's not what I want. That's not what I want. I mean, if you could just, just pass a law saying that we could punch Nazis in the face, I would be okay with that. Pass a law saying we could punch a Nazi in the face, but, you're going to, take away my rights and freedoms, and somehow that's going to, no, fuck you. You all failed. You all failed, so that's the state. Y'all need to figure your shit out. Don't mean you need to punish us. You don't need to punish us because you all failed. And where the hell was the goddamn state? We spend billions of dollars on all this shit for what? For not. That was too much money. We've been wasting all this money. We're not getting any security. We're not getting any safer with this shit. It's only increasing, fascism, which is increasing, inadvertently terrorism too. So we need to do the opposite. With the D.C. riots, we needed to do the opposite. After 9/11, they shoved all that dumb shit down our throats. So instead of doing that, let's get out of the wars, right? Let's end all the wars. Let's get ourselves a peace department. In fact, we could do whatever the hell we want to do. The sky is the limit. The only limit that we have, actually, is Joe Biden's record. That's the limit of what America can do right now. Joe Biden's conservatism, Joe Biden's right-wing conservative bullshit. That's what's stopping America from becoming, Star Trek paradise. So, contact your representatives and shit. Tell them you don't want this shit to happen, okay?